Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will take the report as read. Any questions? Happy to answer any questions. Or would you like me to give you a brief?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. An excellent report. Thank you. Councillor Wayne Walker.
Yeah, only issue I raise is the $10 levy is woefully insufficient. That has been the case for some years now. I understand that we did lobby the government on that. I can't recall when. When's the likelihood that that levy might go up?
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Because that would enable more money for the fund.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the Ministry did a review of the levy. Their findings were more around where the leakage for the waste might be, and they're wanting to get that covered off before they increase the amount of the levy. And as a result of, if they have the leakage covered off, there would be more money coming into that fund in any case, but they are not looking at increasing the amount at the moment.
Thank you.
So just a further question then, and it goes to the point I raised. When is the opportunity on our part to lobby the government again, or should we just be doing that on an ongoing basis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we do that on an ongoing basis, and we are also in conversations with other councils as well. So it is a piece of advocacy that is in the waste plan, to be on top of that in terms of when the right opportunity arises from the ministry's side, we will be advocating for an increase in the levy.
Councillor Walker, Wayne Walker, I will take a further motion from you, if you like, and to requesting that we lobby the government further.
Yes.
You write that out, or?
No, you've got it.
We say, okay, I'll put that
Barbara's
down.
pretty good at
See,
putting things down.
that further work be done to encourage the government to raise the quantum of the waste minimisation levy.
To a lot more.
So, Councillor Casey?
I just wanted to ask about the resource recovery network, and in particular the facility for the Central Isthmus.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we are working on that at the moment. As you are aware, a business case was done a while ago, and there are issues in terms of the two sites that we had looked at, 27 Normanby Road and the one on Great North Road. But we are working together with ACPL to identify what other opportunities might be available within the Central Isthmus, given the difficulty in finding a size that size to accommodate a facility which would be financially sustainable. So we are looking at our options currently, and we are in contact with the local board on a regular basis. We will be going to them when we have something that is viable.
Have you got a timeline on that?
Through Mr. Chairman, we are supposed to go back to the board next week with some more updates.
Thank you.
And there'll be a report coming to next month's this committee next month on waste minimisation plan in general.
Through Mr. Chairman, we're doing an update or a complete update on the annual progress in August.
August,
So
okay.
August.
Sorry, I jumped ahead. So, sorry, Mr. Wilcox.
Just one question, and it's concerning the low level of Māori applications. I suppose that's the right way to put it. Is there support in place that we can kind of change this? I know Māori at a ground level are really doing quite a lot, and I know whānau at a ground level are doing quite a lot. That's why we went out to Māngere, out to Papatūnuku Maraetai, and it was all whānau. So I'm just trying to work out there how we can facilitate that, or is this a role for the strategic broker that we're going to put on?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, through the review of the fund process, we did recognize that we need to have some specific mechanisms or ways to communicate with certain groups. And as indicated in the report, we are doing that at the moment. And we also have people working on the ground, which could be strategic advisors that are actually enabling people to actually put in good applications. You do get a number of applications, but then sometimes they do not sit well with the others, and it's a contestable fund and they don't make it. So we are putting those in place to enable people and capacity build their ability to put up good projects.
Yeah,
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
Just second to that, I just suppose I'd like to make the comment that Councillor Arthur made regarding how small groups would go and ask for 500 and didn't even get nowhere, whereas people that came in with 6 million, sailed through. So I just want to, point that out, that you know, often they're just a little bit unaware of what's required. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Oh, I didn't have a question.
Okay, okay. Well, just following up from what Councillor Walker was saying in relation to the quantum of the waste minimisation levy, ours has been $10, must have been about the last 8 years. So we haven't progressed very much when you look at, I know New South Wales have now got a waste minimisation levy of $100. And where we were last week as well in Adelaide, theirs was about $55, as is the same in Victoria. So I think that we've got a long way to go, and Councillor Casey raises the issue of a waste or resource centre. We've got a long way to go in that area as well, and if we were getting higher returns from the waste minimisation levy, I think that money could go into these resource recovery centres, and I think recovery is a real operative word here, because there's a huge amount of what people can deem as waste can be recovered and used in other areas. So with that, the motion's been moved by Councillor Wayne Walker, I've seconded it. And this is any other speakers, I'll put it. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Hear that carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, now we've got the coastal update, which is a PowerPoint presentation. Sarah? Paul, is it?
Yes.
Right, we're in your hands then.
Thank you.
You've got the control for the slides. So this is the update that we requested, was it last month or yeah, in relation to particular issues that we have and general issues, ongoing seawater inundation and storm surges and that kind of thing. Thank you. You're in your hands.
Thank you. I thought I'd start. So I thought I'd start with a bit of the context. Auckland's a very coastal city, and certainly the east coast is quite modified. Has been quite heavily modified, and is quite developed. Although the west is less.
Can you just pull the microphone over to you? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the east is quite developed and quite modified. We've had quite a lot of human intervention there, less in the west coast. It's quite diverse, but quite a lot of the characteristics of the coast in that diversity are low-lying areas, soft cliff, reclaimed areas, estuaries and rivers, all of which are quite dynamic environments. So as a big picture, our coastal environment is dynamic and subject to natural change, and it's also subject to change from storm damage and human intervention. And this is just a picture of some storm damage, Tamaki Drive, last year. And I think, to paraphrase a question we were asked to update, it was really how are we addressing the dynamic change that is our coastline in our planning. How we're responding to that change, what are we doing now, and what do we need to do in the future? So our update is to talk about our current and future work, but I thought it would be quite good first to talk about how we think climate change will affect what is already a dynamic coastline for us. Sea level rise is going to affect Auckland. We've got predictions at the moment that are between 0.5 metre and 1 metre of change. The Ministry for the Environment guidance is being updated at the moment. What that means for us is that our tide line, the mean high water springs that we do all our planning work to, will move inland. We'll get more flood tides more often, and possibly some higher flood tides as well, and we will get increased cliff erosion. That's just from the sea level rise. The increased storminess is from the warmer air and the warmer sea making the tail ends of the tropical cyclones more likely to hit Auckland. So we'll get an increase in the number of storms and more extreme storms. And because the tide's higher, when we get rainstorms, there'll be less time to drain rainfall flooding as well. Here's an example of recent cliff erosion in Devonport. Again, this is just illustrated with some pictures as we go through. They're not focused on specifics. So to manage our risks in this dynamic environment, we've framed some objectives which are really around making sure that we understand our risks regionally and that we prioritise our actions regionally, and then making sure that everyone understands what our position is on erosion and coastal flooding and climate change, and that it's included in our development controls and guidance, and to make sure that other people are also planning for change, including change that might affect their assets, might affect a potential loss of assets. So we've got a range of work underway, both in the technical side and around engaging with people to communicate with them the nature of our changing coastal environment. This is Muriwai. There's a picture after managed realignment at the end of the presentation. But these are the sort of things that we see, erosion, failures. So in terms of our asset planning, one of the big things that was actually raised back to us from committee was that we understand that the coast works as a system, and managing our coastal assets means managing and understanding the coastal system as well. Sometimes the system and the asset, or the system and development, don't work well together, and we get hotspots where we need to do quite a bit of intervention or monitor quite a lot when there's a storm, because they're the bits that react first. So we're developing sub-regional plans called compartment plans to really align our understanding of the systems and the assets and the hotspots so that we can prioritise actions and investments. In part, that involves training our staff about reporting condition and the context of the assets, monitoring our beaches and interpreting the data. For capital assets in council, we've also initiated the gateway process, which I know has been talked about before, which is focused on improving our decision making for new projects and large scale renewals. This is just an illustration of Maraetai Beach. We've got quite a lot of engagement with the communication, how we communicate the risk and how we communicate what we're doing in the way of good practice. So there's a cross-council family community of practice, which is really sharing good practice knowledge and understanding. That initiative supports the Witness King Tides Citizen Science Initiative, which is all about engaging Aucklanders in going out to look at the king tides, documenting the king tides when they happen, because that's an early indication of what future sea level rise will be like. So it's bringing the ideas to life in our local communities. And we are discussing the dynamic processes with local boards on a project-by-project basis. We've also got the Natural Hazard Risk Management Action Plan, which is about understanding how we're going to respond to those risks and communicate those risks to our communities. And this is the post-realignment Muriwai, different angle.
Yes, sorry.
We're looking at exemplar projects. Really, our exemplar projects all have a long-term and a short-term focus, and they're all looking at a hybrid of structural and non-structural responses and community engagement as part of delivering the projects. We're interpreting the data and building that into the project decision making, and we are holding discussions very much on the ground with the local boards and community groups about coastal projects that they're interested in. In terms of the future work, this is really pulling together our systems understanding. We'll use the coastal compartment management plans to develop regional approaches to erosion management, public risk information and communication, community engagement. We're developing technical guidance for the management and protection, structural guidance, and also guidance on how to adapt to the future changes that we see coming. So this is then going to build into, certainly through the compartment planning process and the regional approach, prioritised AMP and budget management for the coastal assets, based on not just the technical side, but also the communication that we need to do with the public on the risks that we're facing in the coastal environment.